Hey friend, it's Let's Talk Tabletop, and I'm your host Scott. First off, before we get started, what was your week like? Mm-hmm. 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 Well, with that much mozzarella, she was bound to throw up on you. Anyway, my week was pretty cool. I played my friend Josh at the club. He played his Lumineth Realm Lords, and I played my Troggoth army. It's Gloomspite Gits, but it's all Troggoths. Not a goblin in sight. No little green gribblies. And it went pretty well. I was leading basically the entire game until the very end, and he pulled it out by 1 point. So it was pretty good. His list consisted of about 30 bowmen, and then various other things, melee people and characters and whatever. He didn't have... I think he was doing all air, I think. I forget. It's not the Minotaur people. It's the other people. But anyway. And I was doing all Troggoths. I had a unit of Fellwater Troggoths. I had a unit of... what are they called? The Rockgut Troggoths. I had a Hag, and I had a Dankhold Trog Boss, I think it's called. And they're surprisingly resilient. That army is like maybe a little too good, in my opinion, for what I like to do. I like a bit of a challenge when I'm playing games and things like that, and they are pretty darn good. Not Fire Slayers. When I used to play Fire Slayers were way too good. And they were just not fun to play. It was click and, kill, basically. And anyway, these guys are pretty darn resilient. They do a lot of damage, but they're not unkillable, as we saw in that game, because I was practically... Actually, I was nearly wiped off the board all the way to my Troggoth Hag was the only thing I had left. So he did wipe me out, but I took out most of his army too. So it was a pretty good game, actually. And that's how my week went. So the main topic today is that we need to lower our standards. Now, a lot of people are going to probably have an issue with this, but honestly, not everyone's a pro painter. I know I'm not. I'm a very tabletop standard painter. Now, if I really, really tried, I could get better results. But honestly, I have so many armies, I don't have time to do anything higher than tabletop standard. And I don't really like painting enough to try to do better than tabletop standard. So a lot of us, I would say the vast majority of us, are in that same boat. You either don't have the time for it, or you don't have the interest in painting so much, but it seems like everybody wants to try to do very tip-top paint jobs. And most of the tutorials that you see, minus maybe Slap Chop or something like that, all the tutorials you see are like really, really in-depth about how to layer a base and, well, prime and base and layer and highlight and wash and then layer again, and it's just not necessary. You can get perfectly good results from just dry brushing and some highlighting. And it's a method that I call dry lighting, because it's just that. It's dry brushing and highlighting. Maybe some wash if you're feeling frisky. But other than that, it's actually very, very simple. So this Gorgon I have down here for my Beastmen army, he actually was completely dry brushed. And I painted this thing, I'm not lying to you, I painted him in about a half hour. This entire model here. Now, I'm going to zoom in on him to show you exactly what I did. But this entire model was painted in about a half hour. What you see here is primed black, dry brushed Mephiston red. I dry brushed everything. Even got some on the horns and on the blue parts and all of that. I just dry brushed it all Mephiston red. You'll see that the blue is dry brushed, I forget what blue, but I dry brushed a blue, and then I actually did do some highlighting on that. And then, of course, all the skulls and everything, they are all, I forget, it's a bone color. One of the bone colors, and then I actually washed it. See the sides here? I actually washed it to make them look a little dirtier. And then I picked out the little belt, I picked out the symbols on his hand, I just picked out different stuff, his teeth, his tongue, and like half hour later, you're done. Now, is it some sort of award-winning? Is anybody going to look at that? And I apologize, no basing. I haven't chose a base for that army yet. But is anyone going to look at this and go, oh my god, and like lose their mind and pee all over themselves? No, they're not going to. But do they have to? Is your goal really to make people urinate on themselves every time they see your models? Not really. What you really want to do, what most of us regular average Joes want to do, is we want to put models on the table that are ideally painted, because nobody likes gray plastic. And I think painting gets in their head a bit, where they think they have to do, oh, well, if I can't match the stuff on the box, if I can't do heavy metal painting jobs, then I'm not even going to try. And I've met so many people, the chronic gray plastic players that never paint their stuff. They always go, oh, I just can't paint. I suck at painting. Dude, you don't need to be good. You don't need to be good at all at painting, okay? I'm very average, and you know what? I'm actually pretty happy with how this turned out, and you know what? This is the standard at which I paint normally. So, in conclusion, I really don't think that we need to be holding ourselves up to a high standard with paint tutorials. And now, I'm probably going to actually go over painting like terrain or some models to actually show you firsthand with like a timer just how quickly I can paint a model, because it's really not that big of a deal. It really isn't. And I can paint stuff far faster than most other people. And the reason why is because I dry light. I dry brush and I highlight, maybe a wash, boom, pick out the details. You can be done so quick. And a lot of times, if you dry brush properly, you don't actually need to wash it, because the black primer beneath actually creates a shadow, and if you're feathering it nicely and you truly are dry brushing, it's going to give you those shadows that a wash normally would. So it depends on how far you want to go with it, but a big model like this is done in a half hour. You can see it doesn't look too shabby. I think maybe you would want to try to start using the dry lighting technique. Now, it's not something new, but for some reason, it's not talked about. Nobody ever talks about just dry brush it over black and you look perfectly fine. I think it's because of the focus on always wanting to do the maximum perfect paint job. Hey, you made it to the super secret section of the video. So what I'm going to ask you is to email me at letstalktabletopscott@gmail.com. And if you have any like advice that you want to give, any advice that you need, hobby stuff, what you've been working on, funny stories that happened to you, yada, yada, yada. What I'm trying to do here is build a community so we can all be friendly and happy, and it's free of all the other nonsense that's on the internet, okay? And of course, like, subscribe, comment, blah, 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 right? All that nonsense. That would be awesome too. But when I had a podcast, this was always one of my favorite things to do, is get weekly emails, and then I would read them on the air, and I'd reply to them and all that. And that is really, really fun to me. So if you have anything to say, anything you'd like to contribute, either do it in the comments or write me at letstalktabletopscott@gmail.com. And I really appreciate it that you made it to the end of the video. Thanks.